You're listening to The Big Lift, the podcast of Web Trends Optimize, the CRO solution that enables marketers and developers to maximize the ROI on their digital properties. Web Trends Optimize is a powerful, feature-rich and easy-to-use solution, all delivered within a fixed-price contract with no additional cost for increased functionality ever. During these podcasts, we meet some of the key influencers within the marketing and conversion world to understand their roles and examine their challenges. Today's podcast title could be seen as contentious, but as the past 18 months have shown us, e-commerce is growing fast. So anything that offers a competitive advantage should help differentiate brands and their offerings. To discuss this, I'm joined by Matt Abbott, Head of Growth, and Samantha Fraser, Lead Digital Strategy Manager from Shopify Plus agency Swanky. E-commerce is the lifeblood of their business, so hopefully they can answer the question and give an insight as to why they think CRO is becoming mainstream. So, Matt and Sammy, is conversion rate optimization essential to e-commerce? It's a pretty broad topic, wouldn't you say? But before we jump into that, let me just point out that there are many companies that sell products online, and over the last 2 years or so, not only have the number of companies that sell online increased, but also the percentage of overall sales are tipping strongly towards ongoing digital growth. This can't be down to COVID alone, can it?
Yeah, I don't think it is down to COVID. I think it comes down to convenience. Like, people have phones everywhere. They're on them all. They're on their person all of the time, aren't they? So that effectively they can shop 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I kind of think COVID has pushed that digital growth a long way. I think people are using the internet in completely different ways than they used to. So working from home, a lot of people doing a lot more like food shopping online and things like that, engaging with friends and family that you wouldn't normally have done online before that. But I do think the massive digital growth that we're seeing at the moment is also a real big push from kind of just the generation. So millennials and Gen Z just really embracing how they use online in a completely different way now.
I think you're inferring by that people that are working from home are doing their shopping online while they should be working. Is that right?
Maybe a little bit. But yeah, I think about how I use online now. It's a completely different way to how I used it before COVID. And I think before, how you'd think, oh, I'll just pop to the shops or I'll go and do this. You're just looking at any way to make your life that little bit easier. Which, yeah, as Matt said, around convenience, that's definitely a lot more important now.
Do you think the aspect of having a device in your hand 24/7 is actually kickstarting all of this, or do you think that people are just generally becoming lazier and want to be able to do things from the comfort of their sofa?
I don't think people are becoming lazier. I think with society, we're seeing it not just in online retail, but not across the board. The need for instant gratification, and digital is enabling that, isn't it? So the fact that they can order something at 9 o'clock at night and have it delivered in 20 minutes or have it on their doorstep the next morning, it's allowing us to basically to expect that to happen, and it then therefore being able to happen as companies respond and adapt to what consumers are looking for.
I think that's a really interesting angle, because people do purchase things on this instant gratification. I think that's psychologically quite a strong kind of indicator where people are saying, actually, once I want this. I'll give you an example. And this is, I apologize up front, this is gender specific, I think. A lot of men would prefer to buy a TV in a physical store because they can get it there and then than waiting 24 hours. If the price is, give or take, 5%, they're more likely to do that. And I think there's a cost relationship to product purchasing online and delivery timescales, which is a whole different kind of conversation, but one which I'd like to potentially get a consumer psychologist on board to be able to explain that a little bit more. But I think it's an interesting topic in itself. But moving on, I would say that many companies, especially those online, gain significant cost advantages over their physical counterparts. In your view, does this simply make it easier for companies to get online or to start trading? And if so, are people going into business now as an easy option?
There are so many different ways in which that question could be answered. I agree, yes, it does reduce the cost of entry, I think, going online, but at the same time, I also don't necessarily agree. So like in theory, right, you can set up your website for free. There are platforms that enable you to do that, but you're still going to have other costs either directly or indirectly associated with running that business. And that depends on the business model that they choose, or how they start, or what led them into online retail. So unless you're drop shipping, you're still going to have rent to pay. You're still going to have insurance, storage costs, staff costs. And even if people are setting it up in their bedroom, they're still paying to heat their house, aren't they? You're still going to have to raise awareness. You're still going to have to attract customers. And that costs money as well. So yes, going online, there's huge amounts of benefit, and it's a lot easier to reach people that aren't necessarily walking past a physical store. So I guess my answer really, I suppose, is it's a lot easier to be a national business or an international business. So whilst it might not be low cost of entry at the beginning, it certainly lowers the cost of entry into new markets.
One of the typical examples I would cite is that traditional companies such as car showrooms selling automobiles, either new or secondhand, has now become an online process, which is phenomenal considering the amount that people are purchasing to buy something online. But people like Cinch, Kazoo, they've what you would call traditional industries. They have very large marketing budgets, as you can see. You can see sporting venues now being sponsored by the likes of Cinch and Kazoo. But what can companies do that don't have very deep marketing pockets to be able to delve into? Is there anything that the smallest companies can do to be able to kind of get their business online?
They can rely on their customers. Business is still people to people at the end of the day. So it's all about relationships and being able to leverage them. So our advice to our clients is always make your customers feel valued, reward them, recognize them, say thank you to them, get them then to talk about their experience. And the key to that is making sure that you deliver a great customer experience. But as people talk, then they might recommend businesses to their friends. They would have then gone on and acquired a new customer, potentially a lot lower cost than it would have through a traditional digital channel like SEO or PPC.
But SEO and PPC obviously have a cost associated with them. Do you think that people perceive that is value for money by comparison to what you might have seen as traditional marketing? And I mean by that, marketing 20 years ago is a lot different to marketing today. Every element of marketing now has a return on investment or can see a return on investment. Do you think that this people-to-people experience that you're describing there, is that something that you can monetize easily? Or is it something that you have to invest in SEO and PPC and maybe CRO to be able to make the best out of it?
I think for me, the main part is just knowing your customer and where they are and the best way to find them. So if that comes down to SEO, content marketing, then great. But I think there's also a lot of other ways that inexpensive, which kind of reduces that wastage because you know that you're hitting your customer when they're actively searching. So things such as like email and content marketing, like we said with SEO, social media and influencer is huge these days, and it's really like quite an inexpensive way of reaching your customer at a particular time that you know that they'll be looking, kind of looking for like complementary brand collaborations. So all like really good ways to increase your brand reach at low cost while just ensuring you remain relevant and reduce waste of capturing your audience attention at the right time.
That's a great answer, and obviously somebody that has a lot of digital expertise out there. But there are many companies who are just moving into that digital world and potentially using companies like Swanky to be able to help them in that respect. Do you think that the skills gap that's in existing companies going digital versus the bigger companies that have been digital for many months and years. Do you think that digital skills gap is being able to be filled into those smaller companies, or do you think they'll continue to rely on agencies?
I think if we consider the hiring market at the moment, I think businesses are going to have to continue to rely on agencies. There's a risk. I'm going to approach it from a different angle as well. So I think there's a risk employing people. The horrible one is because the person you might be employing might not necessarily be that good. They might have either limited experience or, rightfully so, a single specialism, which in its own right is a good thing to have. But for small businesses, they're going to probably need somebody who is multi-skilled, and that's what you buy when you buy an agency. You buy all of the experience, the collective experience. You buy the ability to service different channels, different work streams, arguably a more effective rate than you would be employing somebody. I suppose the other thing with agencies as well is that you're buying an insurance policy, aren't you? Because if a staff member goes off sick, then you've got a small team, work stops, and you can't have that. But if you buy services from an agency, then you're going to be getting, I suppose, continuity. You can rely on them, or should be able to rely on them, to continue delivering a service regardless of the challenges that they might be facing themselves.
But do you think using agencies is more of a stopgap? So as soon as they start to understand digital a bit more, they start to do more in-housing of that kind of thing, and then use an agency less and less? Or do you think there's a model out there that says agencies have significant benefits over in-housing, and therefore it's always going to be a healthy mix between some in-housing and some agency?
I think it's quite a nice mix. I think for me, one of the advantages of working with an agency is not just the skills that we have as individual people, but as a collective, the, I guess, up-to-date e-commerce experience that we have. So I guess we've launched loads of D2C websites. We run a number of CRO tests every month. And the number of conversations I have with my clients, which is, oh yeah, we ran a similar experience with another one of our merchants, or oh yeah, we've seen this done really well with one of our merchants with this app, for example. I think it's that kind of expertise that really makes agencies stand out, that we can really give that best practice knowledge because we have that wealth of experience that someone in-house in a brand might not have and might kind of want to rely on. So I think for me, it's probably more of a mix of having that in-house, but also, agency alongside.
I think from Swanky's perspective, obviously being a Shopify agent as well, actually has significant benefits, because those people are looking for a broad set of skills, not just the Shopify e-commerce system or whatever it might be. And obviously from your perspective, you can add other bits of expertise into that as well. So at what point, when you're implementing either a new customer or a new website, do you start to implement conversion rate optimization?
It really depends at the stage of growth that they're in. Ideally, we'd want to get them testing as soon as possible after we launch a Shopify store, and naturally be a kind of a sweep up or a bedding down period. But say a month afterwards, we said, let's get testing. Now if I can say so, I think we design like beautiful stores. We build them to a high specification, and they're always data led. But we can't know how it's going to perform once we get traffic going through it. We don't know how existing customers are going to respond. We don't know how new customers are going to perceive it. So our advice is always, like, straight off the bat, start building some customer insight and then start to test.
And is that something that's positioned by you to say, when it's in the get-go, actually, whatever we do needs testing, and therefore you need to look at a CRO vendor or us providing a CRO solution? Or do you see it much more as it's a way of being able to add competitive advantage with regard to what the client's competitors are doing versus what they're doing?
It's both. It is both, but we tend to position it as like CRO is the method of achieving like e-commerce growth. It's probably as simple as that. It's not necessarily about tinkering. It's about driving like incremental growth, incremental changes, and understanding how that website is like set up for customer engagement and interaction, and the customer experience.
So when you're talking to a potential new customer, is CRO as part of that conversation, or is it the customer is looking to be able to do something and basically it wants a Shopify site, and therefore you then have to, and I use the words advisedly, sell the idea of testing as a second rung to that?
It always features in the conversations right from the start. We speak to our clients during that sales stage using, I suppose, the language of a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than it being a bit of a factory where we just churn out websites, actually we're invested for the long term. We want to see that store thrive, and therefore having a conversion rate optimization program once they've got their new store live is going to be essential.
The next question that would follow on from that is, do you see that conversion rate optimization can be used as a kind of a pay for performance kind of indicator from doing all the changes and the building of a new website? Or do you see it as a flat fee? Because when we talk about return on investment, I think there's a lot of potential to say, actually, CRO delivers XYZ value, and therefore we'll deliver that as part of our, use the word again, advisedly, guarantee that CRO is going to add value to you in a return on investment perspective? Or is it just something that is part of the overall fee that you charge?
It's all about value. That's what we take a lot of pleasure in driving for our customers. It's what drives us as a team. So yeah, you require a bit of capital up front to pay for a new store, but then there is significant value to be delivered through our CRO services.
How important is mindset when it comes to CRO, especially with your clients?
It's very, very important. I think CRO sometimes has got a bit of a bad name. I mean, I can speculate as to why it's got a bad name, but I think in this case, like we are finding that the attitude towards conversion rate optimization is changing slightly. The companies know, and even more so over the last 18 months, they've got to listen to their customers. So what we say when we are talking to clients who have never done any CRO before is that you've got different ways of approaching it. You can test and test, or you can test to win, but the most effective mindset is test and learn. So the approach there is it's all about making sure that every test is viewed as part of a longer term strategy and not necessarily in isolation. So look at the results, understand what we've managed to achieve through that one test, but then understand what it means for the future. Do we need more insight? Are there more questions that are being asked? Yes, it might be delivering an uplift commercially, but is there more that we can get?
Yeah, and I think there's a perception that CRO is just on-site optimizations that you make. And I think if you have a business which has a mindset around CRO testing and learning, there's a really great opportunity there for the whole company to be based around CRO. So it doesn't just stop on site, it's driving efficiencies in your marketing spend and your marketing activity, but also even leading into like new product development, packaging, and everything that you do there. I think if you have your customer really at the heart of everything you do, that test and learn approach should kind of impact the whole business rather than just on site.
So how do you get everyone in the business on board and involved and invested in CRO then?
It can be a challenge. But for us, it's about education. So we do offer to run like CRO workshops with new clients. So we talk about the differences in mindset. We talk about the fundamentals of a strong conversion rate optimization program. But really, it's about clarity of communication. So we'll present the data, which has informed a test idea, and then once we've run the test, we tell a story about how it's performed. So it's always better in this case, I think, particularly for merchants who've not done any CRO before, to over communicate, go into the detail, get them understand, and then put a figure on it. Say this has been worth an uplift of an extra £100,000 a year, an extra 2 million a year. I think we're in business. Everybody's in business. Everybody's driven by revenue.
Yeah,
we've got to speak the same language. So there is also an element of us needing to be reasonably adaptable in how we communicate it. But that's again why we start with a consultation period at the beginning of a CRO engagement. We take the time to understand our stakeholders, what motivates them, what their goals are, how we can, in effect, get them promoted internally so that we're really speaking the same language.
And does that include the senior management, say, for instance, the CEO potentially in smaller size of companies, or is it generally just in the marketing department?
The more people that you can get involved, the better. And I don't just mean on like a test by test basis, because the more people you got involved on a test by test basis could be quite detrimental to the program. But
painful.
But the more people that adopt the mindset that CRO is good and the test and learn approach is beneficial across every aspect, the better. So yeah, CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, all the way down to like digital marketing execs, CRO managers, the data team. I'd even go as far as to say it's really, I'm definitely going to say it's really important to not just look at like the on-site experience and also the marketing channels, that you actually you do need to start optimizing like your order management process, and there'll be efficiencies to be made, there'll be savings to be made, that'll all result in more money being generated for the business.
From our perspective, it's relatively easy to monetize and to be able to show a return on investment. How easy is it to be able to do that outside of the online when it comes to optimizing their processes?
I think when it comes to marketing and like, I guess, digital traffic driving and that kind of element, it's really easy. But I don't know, Matt, when it comes to...
Yeah, so for order management, if you've got somebody manually printing off an order and then they have to tick a box and then they've got to input it back into a system, that takes time. But if you've got all of the data ready digitally and it's a click, then gets pushed through into whatever system is needed next to be able to complete that, then that's like a time efficiency, isn't it? So the more that people can do, or your team can do, the more they're going to be able to do as the other side of the business continues to push sales. So it's not necessarily about like driving revenue as such. Let's divide it into top line and bottom line. I think like the on-site stuff that drives top line, but that you can still apply a CRO approach to your back-end processes, which will optimize and improve that bottom line revenue.
I think that's probably a good point to make, is that the CRO isn't always about conversion. And even on site, that we've done many tests with our merchants around kind of reducing the number of tickets sending to customer services and all of that kind of thing, which then saves their internal team more time to do other things as well. So yeah, it's not just all the time CRO about kind of optimizing for conversion, it's optimizing for just, I guess, efficiencies as well in the wider business.
It's a reduction in the cost to serve, isn't it?
Yeah.
We mentioned earlier things that are, SEO, PPC and the like, which falls into the marketing budget. There's obviously some changes afoot in the coming weeks, months, years, who knows what Google's going to do about remarketing. Are your clients aware of the impact that might make to their bottom line now, or is it still an education process for them? Because that's obviously going to help or hinder in their conversion rate optimization process.
They look to us to help them understand it, and quite rightfully so. Like we work with some small and medium-sized businesses who don't have an in-house team, and they look to us as the experts to be able to inform them. Most will likely just trust that we know what we're doing, and we'll find a way to get around these changes. I think it's going to be a challenge. There's no doubt about it. But I'm confident that as a sector, we'll be able to innovate and overcome and just use different methods of achieving growth to make sure that it doesn't too seriously impact, the small businesses that have made it through the last 18 months by the skin of their teeth and now looking forward to something that means that they can put, a turkey on the table this Christmas.
Do you think that the removal of third-party cookies should actually focus the mind more on, once you get a customer on your site, you need to do everything you can to convert them?
Definitely. And I think it brings rise to that first party cookie data and what data can you get from that customer when they're on your site a lot more. So I guess at the moment, for a number of our merchants, things such as like quizzes and things like that on site to kind of get as much about that customer as possible while they're there. So that data is stuff that you own and that you can use through like email and stuff like that. But I think this whole third-party cookie dilemma is just switching our focus to what can we do instead.
We're going to have to work harder to get customers to convert once we've attracted their attention and piqued their interest. But taking it a stage further, we're also going to have to work really hard to make sure that we retain those customers as well. And like, I think going back to what we said at the beginning of the conversation, like, we're still going to have to optimize the retention strategies, the loyalty programs. We can't guarantee that because we've got a loyalty program, somebody's going to be loyal. We still have to get the right message out in front of them at the right time, the right rewards out to them. And we also, like we don't know that the on-site experience is going to work every time. We don't know that the messaging around a referral scheme is going to work every time. So continue to test, and we're going to have to test, both the acquisition and the retention stages.
So one of the theories that I've got, and I've aired it a number of times over the past 5 years or so, is I think we're going full circle. So going back 50, maybe 60, 70, even 100 years, when the corner shop was the place where most people bought the main purchases in their life. The whole idea of the corner shop owner understanding that Janice has got 2 kids and a husband that works down wherever it might be, down the mine or in a mill or whatever it might be. He kind of knew his customer almost intimately. And that's because he asked questions and he brought into the fact this relationship of, oh, I noticed Johnny was in last week. He purchased this, or Fred, your little son, was in, and, gosh, isn't he growing, and all that sort of thing. That relationship actually was more than just to that shop owner, just the fact that he liked to talk to his customers. It actually helped build his business by understanding what they liked. And when they got something in that was very exciting and they knew that Janice might like, he'd actually say, oh, I've got this. How's about trying that? And that's where I think what we're going back to in a digital format, trying to find out, with the use of surveys and questioning and quizzes and all that sort of thing, more about our online customers to help deliver that same type of service. So I don't know whether you agree with that, but it's certainly something that I think that when you look at the two, the analogies are pretty strong. Would you say that was the case?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time coming up, actually. But you've got 2 things that are happening. Like you say, we're going full circle. We're getting more emphasis on shopping and staying local, and that's why customers know the people that can, particularly if they're like omni-channel retailers, people who can buy online but then also go in store and have a conversation and check in on how their kids are doing or whatever. And then at the same time, we've got increasing levels of international expansion. But I still think the principles of knowing your customer and being reasonably local and all the benefits of that will continue to be felt in the international expansion of these businesses.
So a question that I think is very relevant here, because we've been talking in a very digital world, and obviously from our perspective, we live in a digital world, but to our friends and perhaps our family and things like that, they probably wonder what we do. So, for instance, Sammy, what would you do when somebody in your family or one of your friends says, well, what do you do, Sammy? How do you explain what you do?
Oh, this is really hard. And I've been to a couple of weddings recently where this has come up and you have the whole, well, what do you do? And it's really hard, I think, to pitch, not knowing the other person. They might be, CRO of Apple or something, manager of Apple. But yeah, I think it's coming back to I help brands who are trying to sell online optimize their website for their customers is normally kind of a line that I go to, and you normally get some very confused faces at that point. But yeah, it's a hard one. I don't know, Matt, have you got any suggestions that I can take for my next wedding?
No, I was hoping you'd answer that question for me, Sammy. I have the same issues. Again, a couple of weddings this year, and you don't quite know how people are going to receive it. So I've had similar conversations where I've explained it just like you have, and they've gone, got it, all about website optimization. Yes, thank you. This is going to be an easy conversation. And then at the same time, you know, I've spent half an hour explaining it to my granddad, and he's turned around to his mate and gone, "Oh, this is my grandson. He works in IT."
I usually find that the conversation goes two ways. One is, gosh, that must be a fascinating area to work in. And the other one is, blimey, you're the guys that's collecting all this data on me. And then it goes down this route of GDPR and what data you hold on me and all those sorts of things. So I find it's very Marmite when you start talking to people. People either love it or they hate it, and you will get very strong opinions on both. And I think from my perspective, it's fairly easy to place what we do as Web Trends Optimized by saying, do you know when you go on a website and it says, do you want to accept cookies? And they go, oh, yeah. We're one of the companies that helps other companies to place those cookies and get data which is relevant to your customer journey to help them guide you through the process. And they go, oh, that's great. And then they go into, oh, that's wonderful. That must be really exciting. And then it's the other one that says, actually, I don't like the fact of all these cookies. I always say no. And then it goes off to another conversation entirely. So I think it's a Marmite. You either love us or you hate us.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing, actually. Like, I very much have had a few of the second responses recently. And I think now people are just a lot more hot on their data. But I also think that, like, my kind of sister-in-law who I have this conversation with maybe just doesn't fully understand that. And then it's a really nice place actually to kind of change the conversation about how we use their data and how it's not kind of some big brother person that is stalking them entirely. And that's quite a nice conversation to kind of be like, you know what, let me explain it to you. It's not really as bad as it seems.
But I think the third-party cookie bit, the remarketing stuff, has actually put people up and say, well, I've just looked at this particular product, and the next thing I know, it's on every page I look at. And you kind of think, well, that's I suppose, the bit where people get either angry or surprised. They get surprised the first time, and then they get angry because it's always appearing and they're trying to get rid of it or whatever it might be. So the removal of third-party cookies, from our perspective, I believe, is going to be a positive thing, because it just shows that we're not following you around the internet. We're actually just trying to be able to help your experience when you're online on this site to be better.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we've answered the question in a very roundabout sort of way, that do we think that CRO is an essential tool to e-commerce driven companies? Have you got anything to add to that, either Sammy or Matt?
You're right. It is an essential tool, and all I can say is that you don't have to start big. The important thing is data. If you've got the data, you can understand your customers, you can understand behavior, and then you through a tool like Web Trends or through an agency can start to understand how that data can then change and impact your top line revenue. But it doesn't have to be a big scary word. It's incredibly accessible.
I think accessible, but also fun, interesting, and addictive as well.
Addictive's a great word. I love that, Sammy.
I think, for anyone who's not doing it, just to kind of, like Matt said, start small and just get those immediate learnings and see the immediate impact that such a small thing can make. And then, just go from there.
Just before we kind of finish off, Matt, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, you're also the managing director of Elator Sports. Somewhat different to your job at Swanky, I would have thought. So what is it? What is Elator Sports?
Very, very different, actually. So Elator Sports is a not-for-profit community interest company. I was inspired by London 2012 and the Paralympic Games, so I set up Elator Sports to basically break down the barriers and make disability sport much more accessible. So we offer 12 different sports to anybody with a disability. It's very rewarding, but interestingly, I'm going to be a bit lame and pull it back into e-commerce, but there are some parallels. So with e-commerce and conversion rate optimization in particular, we look at breaking down barriers and making things more accessible, and that's exactly what I did at did with Elater Sports. I worked out what the barriers were, and I worked out how to make it much more accessible.
Does it cause any conflict with regard to your work at Swanky versus what you do at Elatus?
No, never. It never has, but particularly with my time at Swanky, it's not caused any conflict because, as you can expect, when COVID hit, we weren't able to go and see any of our particularly vulnerable individuals. So it's quite sad, really. We've not operated since March last year. I don't really know what getting back up and running looks like at this stage, but it makes such a positive impact, or made such a positive impact to the people's lives that we worked with, that it can't disappear. Prior to that, when I was working full time in for another consultancy, it never caused any conflicts because I had a fantastic coaching team, and they got on and they cracked on with the job, and I was just there dealing with all the entertaining bits like finance and holidays and all that kind of stuff.
That sounds really entertaining. Finance, anyway. So, Matt, Sammy, thank you very much for your time. We know it's obviously takes time out of your day to be able to do these sorts of things, but it's very interesting for our listeners to be able to see life on the other side of the fence as well. So, both, thank you very much, and we may get back in touch at some point in time to see how things are progressing. But for now, thanks a lot.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the invite. It's been a really, really good fun talking to you.